Our world is changing. It's time for fresh ideas and new points of view. I'm Yana Peel, Global Head of Arts and Culture at Chanel. And this is Chanel Connects, bringing together creative game changers from film, art, dance, music, and more.
Can you hear me, Charles?
Yeah, I can.
Hi, Emerald.
Hey, it's so nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you, John.
Great to finally meet you, Annika.
Thanks for having us.
Some are old friends and collaborators. Others are meeting for the first time. All are focused on what matters most and what's coming next. And now we get to listen in.
Could you tell where my head was at when you found me? Me and you went to hell and back just to find peace.
In this episode, we're connecting David Hallberg and Lil Buck. David was once described by The New Yorker as the most exciting male dancer in the Western world. He was inspired to pursue a career in dancing at an early age by watching Fred Astaire, and he worked his way up through the American Ballet Theater, going on to become the first American principal dancer at the Bolshoi Ballet in Moscow. However, his dance career came to a halt when a severe injury took him off stage for 2 years. Having moved to Melbourne in the height of the pandemic, David's much-anticipated return to the stage at the Australian Ballet was just announced earlier this year. David is connecting with dancer and actor Lil Buck. Buck specializes in an altogether different kind of dance, Jookin. Jookin originates in Buck's hometown of Memphis and has taken Buck far in life. He went viral by performing alongside cellist Yo-Yo Ma. He's since danced for Madonna at her Super Bowl halftime show, as well as for the New York City Ballet, just to name a few. I'm joined by David and Buck to discuss what's coming next in dance and to ask, do they have nothing in common or everything in common? Oh my God, this is so exciting. Whoa, all right. David Hallberg, Lil Buck, I am so excited to be here. Two dance legends who are best placed to tell us what matters most, what's coming next in dance. And I'm here in London, and I would love to find out where this conversation finds you.
I am currently in Palo Alto right now, in the midst of the Memphis Jookin show tour.
And David, good morning.
Good morning, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. It's a bright and sunny morning here.
Well, good day, mate.
Good
It's
day.
a pleasure to pin you guys down. And I imagine that neither of you is very good at sitting still. So I'd love to ask you when that is most impossible.
Now. No, but seriously, I'm in my least still. When I'm in the studios, just trying to develop new works, trying to figure out what the sound looks like, that's when I'm least still.
Beautiful. Now, there's so much I want to ask you about, but I want to start at the beginning. And since you're touring Memphis Jookin, the show right now, Can you just start by sharing with us what is Jookin? I know many people listening are likely to be familiar with ballet, but how would you explain in words the magic that you bring to the stage?
Of course, Memphis Jookin is a dance style that is native to the city of Memphis. It originated in Memphis back in the mid-'80s. Going into the early 90s. It was born from Memphis underground rap music. So this is music that was not in the mainstream in Memphis. This is rap music that was literally in the underground world where you got cassette tapes from somebody or some DJs would sell you some, back in the day when they had cassette tapes, when you bought those, it was direct to consumer basically from these DJs. And Memphis has this special, unique sound with the way they produce and create music. As far as rap music goes, and how they use the instrumentations of, triple hi-hats and that deep bass that they use in those snares and how they put all these different things together. It made us move and it made us bounce a certain way. And ultimately, that's what helped create the dance and the movement. So Memphis Jookin, if I was to describe it to somebody who's never seen it, I'd say it it consists of a lot of slides and glides and very intricate footwork. And it's a full body movement. It's like Michael Jackson times 10. That's how I used to see it.
And so with the show, is that a new knowledge that you feel you're bringing across America? Or are you there really furthering people's engagement with the craft they're already appreciative of?
No, absolutely. I think it's a new knowledge for a lot of people because a lot of people are introduced to Memphis Jookin through what I've done in the classical world, if that makes any sense. Like, I've had a lot of success collaborating with, different artists and different musicians like Yo-Yo Ma or different like classical dancers and things of this nature. And then just in my own arts, I like to consider myself an artist in general, not just a Memphis Jooker, but an artist of movement. So I like to, jump into different, forms of movement and learn as much as I possibly can. So when you're just watching me just dance, that's a different thing than watching me jook. You know what I mean? Because, it's so many different elements I take from my different experiences in dance. But when I'm just solely jooking, like in its most natural form to Memphis underground rap music, you know what I mean? It's a totally different vibe and different feeling and different movement that you're getting from me. And so that's why we're touring, because I want to really educate a lot of people on that and how beautiful that is.
And Buck, ballet has come into your life amazingly in this home you mentioned, also the homeland of Elvis Presley. And I'd love to ask David whether hip hop and Jookin have come into his life and whether anyone can learn to dance.
I always say dance is primal. So anyone can not only, learn how to dance, but anyone can dance. And I think that's whether it's ballet, whether it's Jookin, whether it's hip hop, whether it's tap, whether it's at the club, everyone has that instinct, I think.
And how did you?
I had that instinct through Fred Astaire.
Oh, tell us more.
He was on the TV screen, and I was like, oh my God, he was my instant idol, and I idolized him. I wanted to be like him. I taped nickels to the bottoms of my shoes to make tap shoes, and that's when the bite started. I started in tap, then I went to jazz and hip hop. And I was a competition baby in America. So I did all the jazz competitions, went to LA, then ballet. And that was, I never looked back. I had found my genre of dance. And then I just worked and worked and worked. Because 13, in the ballet world is a little old to start training. I know that's a really convoluted way of thinking about age, but at 13, I knew I was getting a late start, so I made up for lost time.
And Buck, shortly thereafter, I think it was about 16, when you got your scholarship with the new ballet ensemble in Memphis. I heard there's some conditions you had before accepting that. I'd love to hear how that might have been a transformational moment in your life.
There was. I'd like to say, actually, me and David got a lot more in common than I thought, because, it's crazy you say you were inspired by Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire was one of my inspirations, on a certain level of dance. And I actually started when I was 13 as well. So that's amazing. I became a company member at this ballet school in Memphis, Tennessee called New Ballet Ensemble. And I got a scholarship to take ballet because I used to rehearse in this school doing hip hop dancing, actually. I was a part of this group called Subculture Royalty. And, the artistic director of the ballet school, Katie Smythe, she saw me just practicing in one of the rooms, and I was jooking and I was doing all these different things. But all she saw was like, fifth position and she saw all these different positions and how they coincide with Memphis Jookin, right? And then she just thought it was incredible that I just did these things naturally, and offered me a scholarship to actually take ballet and learn more about the craft. And, just me being an open channel for dance in general, I was always interested in it. And I was, I always had that interest in how like ballerinas did certain things, how they stood on their toes so long. And so I was with it. I just didn't want to wear tights. I understand it now, of course. I understand the importance of it, seeing the lines, and that's how you learn and grow and know what you which position your leg is supposed to be in and all these different things. But at that time I was young and I was a street kid, honestly. I was just a street kid. And I was like, I'll take class. I just don't want to wear no tights. I'll come in with some sweats. Is that okay? And she said, no, that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Just bring you.
I didn't want to wear tights at the beginning either.
And here you are.
And here I am.
So someone who I think unifies both of you in this field is Damien Wetzel, who, for anyone who doesn't know, was a principal dancer with the New York City Ballet and is now the principal of Juilliard School. And Buck, it was he who brought you together with Yo-Yo Ma and Spike Jonze in the performance of that viral video of the dying swan, which seemingly changed everything for you. Can you tell me about that moment and that time in your life leading up to that moment?
That was like an awakening for me, you know, like because I was so caught up in Memphis Jookin, you know, and just that one thing. And like as I said before, I was open to learning different ways of movement. But that actually happened from me working, like me and Damien met from me working with New Ballet Ensemble. So when I got with New Ballet, I was always in class at bar. Just so, you know, Katie Smythe, she saw that I was interested in dancing to different music. So she just put on the Swan and she just said, why don't you just try something? Just try dancing to this. And it was Yo-Yo Ma's version of the Swan. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do something to that. And it was my first time performing the Swan actually for kids. And they just went crazy. Like, I think that video is back on YouTube right now, actually.
Liquid Limbs. I think that's what went viral.
But yeah, that went crazy. But that's what got the attention of Damien Wetzel. And then Damien reached out to me on Facebook and it was just like, hey, I really want to try something with you and Yo-Yo Ma. Like, that song you performed to was so amazing. He actually, you know, and then he told me Yo-Yo Ma was in LA and I was actually in LA at the time when he reached out. So he brought us two together. I met Yo-Yo Ma for the first time at the Walt Disney Hall and he had a concert there. And Yo-Yo was, you know, he was different, man, than anybody I've ever met. Like, as soon as he got done rehearsing and he got off stage and he met me, he's like, so you're Lil Buck? And just gave me the biggest hug. And we went to this back room backstage and he was like, you know what, I just want to try something. And he opened up his cello and he just started playing. And then I just started to move, like naturally. It just happened so natural. And it was like only like 5 people back there. And Spike Jonze was there to capture the whole thing. And, you know, he said, I mean, as soon as he saw like this street kid and Yo-Yo Ma come together, you know, he was like, what's going on here? Like, I think this is going to be something, you know.
Did that happen on his mobile phone?
On his mobile phone. He was just like, this might be a little special.
Wow.
Let me see what's up. You know, Spike Jonze, you know, he's a great director he is. He ain't going to never miss a beat. He going to have his camera out. So it was just like the stars aligned.
David, is there any individual you can point to for a similar moment of awakening in your artistic life?
Great question.
I love when you say that.
Oh, Yana, you're asking really hard questions. We've both been stumped, but Buck hasn't admitted to it being a hard question.
It's going to get really easy after. I promise. It's going to be about fame and Michael Jackson and Strictly Come Dancing after this.
I think one of my partners, Natalia Osipova, who is from the Bolshoi originally, but now she's at Royal Ballet in London. And, you know, we weren't scheduled to dance together, but someone was injured. And so I stepped in and she admitted to me years later that she was like, didn't want to dance with me. She was like,
was it the tights?
I don't want to. It was, she was like I was given as the option and she wanted to dance with someone else. Anyway, we danced together and it was like this explosion of a partnership. It was, she's absolute fire. She's temperamental, she's dramatic, and I'm a little more calm and cool and relaxed. And we complemented each other, you know, opposites like absolutely attracted. And it developed into this unbelievably passionate partnership. You know, we danced in Moscow together, in London and New York many times, Romeo and Juliet, all these ballets. Anyway, what she taught me was individual interpretation in the art form. She is the kind of dancer that cannot be reined in and told how to do things. Even in roles like Swan Lake and these traditional ballet roles that have this preconceived idea of what it should be, So she really shifted my perspective in how ballet can be seen, experienced, and interpreted.
Actually, I remember probably 2013 when I first met you, David, at Lincoln Center. It was this amazing homecoming. You were the first American dancer to be the principal at the Bolshoi in Moscow. You came back to Lincoln Center to dance Swan Lake, I think it was, and also to launch the David Hallberg Scholarship for Boys. And I remember that for you, there was an importance in nurturing up-and-coming male dancers. I'd love to hear about yourself having had the courage to find your calling in dance. Maybe you can expand for us on that and what that scholarship meant for you for others.
Well, I mean, I just knew how difficult it was for me as a kid to wear the tights and pursue something that, a lot of kids around me didn't accept. I was really bullied as a kid. I never hid the fact that I was dancing at school, but I just was, I wasn't accepted, and the fact that I loved to dance wasn't accepted. And I've spoken to so many parents and so many kids who are being teased sort of incessantly, and some, consider quitting dance because of this reason. And it just, I don't know, offered me an excuse to help them in any way I can, because I could always relate to it. I could always bring it back to the fact that I was like this little kid in suburbia America, just like not playing baseball. And I just pointed straight forward and didn't look back and just pushed through. And, obviously I got out the other end, but it wasn't easy.
And David, you've pushed through and managed to innovate so much within a realm that often has a very concrete wrong or right. I know Buck was curious to ask you whether or not your students are encouraged to innovate and create as his are with Jookin.
Yeah, great question. Because of my experience in the jazz world and tap dancing and Fred Astaire, I try and find or get their individuality out from them. Like what is their interpretation? Right now, we're on stage doing a number of ballets, and I'm always like, tell your own story on stage. Find it yourself. What's your narrative? What's your way of dancing? It doesn't have to be obedient, because the ballet world, ballet dancers are so good at being obedient. We're trained like soldiers. We're told what to do, how to do it. We're corrected. We're critiqued. We love that feedback. We crave that feedback. But I think what's so interesting, what interests me to any sort of dancer, is their individual interpretation of their, genre of dance.
Buck, you're nodding your head. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think that's incredible because I know the importance of both. Like just with my experience in ballet, I know the importance, like you said, of like, I was that guy too that I wanted that feedback. I wanted to know that, I was doing the right thing when it came to, to learning my craft. And that's what made me, that's what makes us grow, right? That's what makes us grow. We have we have a goal, you know what I mean? Like if you're not doing something right, then you're going to fight and you're going to work. Dance is, like you said before, it's primitive in us, right? It was like it's one of the oldest languages, right? that we have. So like, I think it's really important that, personally that we find that time and find that space to be able to, really practice on and work on, learning who we are through movement. You know what I mean? Because I'm so used to, I see that a lot in hip hop, even in dance and hip hop. Like there's a lot of hip hop dancers that is so used to learning choreography from other choreographers that when it comes time to like just express yourself freely as, as just who you are. And as a dancer, it's really tough. And it's amazing that just hearing your story because, I never knew how much we had in common. Like it's so much. Like I was bullied growing up. Like throughout most of my school days, I was bullied. And
what were you bullied for? David told us about his.
Well, I was I was the new kid in Memphis, right? Like, I was born in Chicago, but I was raised in Memphis. My family moved there when I was 7 years old. And Memphis is a hard place to live, you know, just growing up. Like, a lot of people grow up really fast in Memphis. And I grew up kind of sheltered. You know, and my mom worked a lot of jobs to, like, just make ends meet. So I grew up just mostly around my grandmother, who sheltered me quite a lot. So I didn't get to really, you know, learn what was going on the outside of the world, outside of our house. And when I moved to Memphis, and then immediately just got injected into this public school in Memphis, and it was a whole different culture and a whole different way that kids were going about life. I was just different, you know, and I was kind of socially awkward. That's why I spent so much time in dance, and I still do.
It's interesting. Before I turn to your bodies as artist-athletes, which is, I think, an interesting point, I'd love to find out if each of you thinks you can move like the other with any success. How would that look if we flipped your disciplines?
I have no clue. I think there's a very special way that David moves. I've seen videos of David, and he just brings a certain presence. And it's very unique. And I was just telling him, I was like, man, you just got this presence, man, where it feels like I'm watching a movie or something. It's like I'm watching a movie. I was like, you got that face, you got the whole presence of like, dang, he just put me in the movie right now. And I think that's a cool thing too. You know, it's what makes you you. So
for me, it's I've seen you live, I've seen you in videos. And this is a good segue into the body, Yana, because I just look at your feet, and I've been plagued with injury in my feet, ankles and everything. So I was, you know, looking at you this morning on video, and I was like, no, there's no way. So you do your thing, I'll do mine, and we'll appreciate each other from afar.
Absolutely.
And David, you touched on the ankle, the injury which nearly brought you to the end of your career in 2014, when you lost 2.5 years of your life, which must have felt like 2.5 decades. Can you talk about the kind of identity crisis a serious injury must have provoked in you as a dancer at the top of your game at that time?
Sure. I mean, I think something interesting you said is at the top of my game. I mean, I was in the prime of my career physically. You know, you really peak in your early 30s, and that's when I abused my body. I was flying all around the world, at, like, all these opera houses, doing all these shows, and I just was not taking care of my instrument. And what happened was I just ignored until I couldn't anymore. I literally couldn't jump. And to be honest, the performance you saw in New York was my last performance on stage before I went off and had surgery, and it just all went south from there. But what happened was I lost ego, which was actually ended up being a really good thing. So I was riding high. The ego was coming along with it. I was, I thought I was invincible in a way. And then everything came crashing down, and I couldn't do what people celebrated me as. And I had to rebuild myself as a person back from the ground up over 2.5 years, essentially. And that was obviously life-changing, but it was as well like this rebirth of who I was as a person, not who I was as the dancer people expected me to be. And so now that I'm not, now that my first job isn't as dancer, it's as artistic director, I'm cool with that. Like, I didn't go through like this whole crisis, which a lot of ballet dancers go through when they have to stop dancing because they lose their identity completely and they don't know what to do. And I went through that. And then I got back to it and was like, you know what? This is great. This doesn't last forever. So I'm really grateful for the moments that I have.
And Buck, how has your body changed in the time you've been dancing? Has it led you, your instrument, in any new directions.
Absolutely. So this is quite refreshing, this conversation, and just hearing everything that David has to say about his personal journey in dance, because I've experienced a similar thing with my body as far as injuries go. I injured my right ankle and got and I think I had a hairline fracture in the outside of my right ankle, and I just kind of ignored my body like you were saying, and it was this one performance where I was performing at I was practicing and rehearsing to perform this show called Lil Buck Bending the Road at the Delacorte Theater in New York in Central Park. And during that rehearsal that night, the night before the show, I had a really bad injury to my ankle because we were dancing outside and it was like a marley floor and there was this lake behind it, and I think just the humidity and all that stuff, when the floor starts to sweat or whatever, or water starts to come up, and I was doing some spins and came down too hard on my ankle. And as flexible and as crazy as my ankles can get, I have to be mentally prepared. I know what I'm getting myself into before it happens. And this happened so fast that it really injured my ankle, and I couldn't dance for a while either. It wasn't nearly as long as, yours was, David, but I couldn't move for about 3 months, and that sucked. So I can only feel like I couldn't even imagine what you went through because it was the dark ages for me for those 3 months. I can no longer do a lot of the things that I used to do with my ankles now. Like a lot of those videos you probably see me on YouTube doing where it's just like, looks like the impossible that I'm doing with my ankles. There's a lot of those things I can't do right now.
All right, well, take us to those videos with Madonna, Janelle Monáe. Maybe give us a little bit of an idea of what those videos looked like.
So yeah, you can look up some Memphis Jookin videos of me, some battles of me on YouTube, and Lil Buck versus G-Nerd, or some videos of like me, performing with Madonna at the Super Bowl, or any of those things. And you can see that I have a lot of strength and flexibility in my ankles, and I can like twist them different ways, and balance in these crazy, positions that aren't natural. But a lot of that has gone away now, where it was a point where I couldn't even flex my foot on the outside. I couldn't, I used to be able to walk on my outside ankles. I used to be able to walk comfortably on those and do a lot of things on the outsides of my ankles, but it was a point where I couldn't even bend my outside ankle. I still can't. I have a lot of restrictions now, so it's a lot of things that I really can't do.
What about mental health? Because you've talked about the vulnerability, you've talked about the validation, you've talked about your bodies as instruments, and yet we're coming out of one of the hardest moments and eras for dancers, with theaters darkened and stages roped off. So I'd love to hear how you're thinking about that mental health aspect when it comes to dance, what you're doing about it, what you think we're going to be seeing coming out of this unprecedented moment.
Here at the Australian Ballet, we focus a lot actually on mental health. We found that during the lockdowns, because Melbourne is the city with the longest lockdown in the world, we've carried that title since the pandemic more or less ended, and we noticed that the dancers really obviously suffered during the lockdowns. So we here take mental health almost as seriously as physical health. We've got a really great physio team here, but we also have the sort of wellness coach that the dancers can rely on. And not everywhere is like that. Like Russia isn't like that at Bolshoi Theater. Like, it's very much just get on with it. But here we want to have the dancers as mentally and physically balanced as possible. So then we're able, when we get into the studio or on stage, to push to the limits, push really far. But we know that we have strong bodies, strong minds.
And with TikTok exploding as a digital stage, has that been a positive evolution for the dancers?
It has. And, it's it isn't anything that we sort of have integrated into the fabric of the company. You know, we're a live art. We're on the stages in Australia and around the world. But I see the power in not only TikTok but in social media, and I'm always, promoting and telling them to go, learn the TikTok dances, get it up, because they've seen some benefits, and it's nice to see. I mean, we've all seen the TikTok videos that have gone viral, which is great. I think the dancers should absolutely participate in it.
Buck, what do you think of these evolutions?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of kids that are rushing themselves now, to get that instant success. For me, in my generation, when I was growing up, I had the patience because there was no social media growing up. So I had to be patient with learning and with actually, taking the time to learn a craft and trying my best to, master what I can in that craft and get as good as I possibly could get. But now with this new generation and how people are getting such instant or fast success and going viral really fast on social media, a lot of the aspirations of the dancers have changed, but they still want that longevity. There's a lot of kids who are getting viral out there just by hitting a few moves, right? Like in 30 seconds. And they don't know which way to go. I've had a lot of kids that reached out to me on social media saying, how do you do it? How do you have longevity in your career? Because I've, and there, a lot of them are Instagram stars, and that's just my feeling on it. And that's what I've been trying my best to share, and to share my experiences as a dancer and my successes as a dancer in performing arts, and with the kids that I'm working with right now, not to, to have fun with that, but not let that be the only thing that they work towards.
And David, I think you share that ethos of knowing how to master the rules before you can break them. What does the new era of the Australian ballet look like with you as artistic director now?
The future looks bright. It looks, I really believe that. I mean, I'm not here to only look at heritage. I don't think that they brought in a non-Australian, who's had all these weird experiences in ballet in Russia and in London and everywhere else. They didn't bring me in to play safe. And there's repertoire that we're bringing in that the dancers are really eager to do, like in terms of contemporary dance, some work from Netherlands Dance Theater and Justin Peck all over. But it's my MO to bring audiences along here on that outlook, because yes, we do Swan Lake. Yes, we do Romeo and Juliet. Yes, we'll continue to do these works that are timeless, but there's no freshness in an art form if you just do those ballets. And I'm testing, honestly, full confession, I'm testing the audience out. I'm seeing what their threshold is, because audiences are malleable. Audiences are, if they're curious, you can bring them along on the journey. And people trust the Australian ballet here, which is great. And so they trust that we will bring them on this journey into new, genres and new ways of telling the story through dance.
And before we move to Buck, what's coming next? Who should the listeners be looking out for as we come out in terms of new voices, fresh talent, what might not already be on our radar that is really, really important to watch?
I think there's amazing work coming out of New York right now, to be honest. There's a whole understanding or reinterpretation of who creates for a ballet company. And ABT is doing that, New York City Ballet is doing that, and also Royal Ballet is doing that in London. It used to be like, oh, it's only a choreographer that can create on point shoes and create a story ballet that's 2 acts and has an interval and is 2 hours long. And all of that is being sort of rethought, which I think is due time that the ballet world brings other people in. And that's something that I'm doing here at the Australian Ballet. I'm bringing in the contemporary dance field in Australia. We're opening the doors we're seeing what can be created that isn't ballet choreography per se, or what people assume should be created on ballet dancers. And I mean, Buck, you've done that in the past. I mean, you've worked with ballet dancers, and I'm sure you've seen the curiosity in ballet dancers.
Absolutely.
But you've also started to, question, well, what does a ballet dancer do? What do you do with a ballet dancer? I think that's what's important in the dance field right now.
Buck, what would you like to do next with a ballet dancer or with a dancer who's Jookin? What are your wildest ambitions?
I mean, I just love the going for new things and just experimenting with our bodies and what we can do and what's possible. Like, I love what you were saying earlier just now, David, about, just, and I agree with you. There are, like, I see it, like Christina Cox from Ballet X, you know what I mean? She's brought me in to work with Ballet X and to, choreograph. I think it's exciting. I just think it's really exciting to try new things with their bodies and see, and just to see how far we can go with, creating something that's, like I said, just not the norm.
Now, we are running out of time, but I would love to ask about other worlds that you're keen to explore, in dance or otherwise.
What do you call it? I forget it, but I forget the name of this dance style, and I'm embarrassed about it, but it's when, have you ever seen the Russian dancers that, like, do all these different jumps and come down on their knees and then do all these crazy knee spins and just, oh my God, I want that so bad.
Oh my God, I'm Russian Ukrainian. I need to know what
I want
this
that
is.
so
Right.
bad.
Cossack. I think it's Cossack
I want that
dancing.
so
Lil Buck, is that where we're going
That
here?
is where I'm going. I want that bad. You don't even know. Like, I'm just amazed every time I see that. So, and I'm hungry for that right now.
That's a pretty high hurdle, David Hallberg.
No, listen. I spent some time in Georgia, in Tbilisi, when I was in my 20s, and I went to the National Georgian Dance Academy, and they did exactly what you're talking about, Buck. They were like these 10-year-old guys were like on their knees, on their toes, like circling the studio. It was unbelievable. So, I mean, I think other than like a specific example, like Buck gave, for me, it's really about connecting the fields, continually connecting the creative fields. And I think dance, I think ballet needs to continually stay curious. In the past, we haven't done a great job in being curious. There are, of course, amazing examples, but because of it being a traditional art form, the ballet world needs to stay curious. It needs to stay open to experiences like Buck has had. It can always come to interesting kind of collaboration and interesting angles of seeing a very traditional art form.
David, I think that is a beautiful and hopeful note, an ray of light in these challenging geopolitical times in terms of the importance of dance staying open and curious and telling individual stories with global resonance. Thank you so much for this incredible pleasure and privilege of both of your precious time. Thank you, Buck. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Yana, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Chanel Connects. Don't forget, you can follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app. You can also listen back to Season 1, featuring conversations between Pharrell Williams and Ez Devlin, Keira Knightley and Lulu Wang, and many more.